In 1965, a snap-on socket set cost more than most mechanics made in a week. Guys ate bologna sandwiches for a month just to afford one ratchet. Today, some of these forgotten tools sell for 10 times their original price, and number 4 is so rare that collectors fight over it at estate sales. Number 1 costs more than a brand new Chevy. These are the 15 forgotten snap-on tools every American mechanic wanted but could not afford. Hit that subscribe button and let's open the truck doors. Number 15, the vacuum grip screwdriver set. Before ergonomic handles and rubber overmolds, there was the vacuum grip. Those hard amber handles with the deep flutes showed up on the Snap-on truck in the late 1930s and stayed in the catalog for decades. The name came from the way your palm seemed to lock onto that fluted acetate, even with hands covered in gear oil. Your dad's boss had a set lined up in the top drawer of his box, like surgical instruments, and nobody, absolutely nobody, touched them. A full set ran about $12 in 1955 when a journeyman mechanic in Toledo was pulling in maybe $2 an hour. That was 6 hours of busted knuckles for screwdrivers when the hardware store sold a whole set for $1.50. But here is what the hardware store version could not do. The vacuum grip tips were precision ground to fit the slot exactly, so they did not cam out and chew up the screw head. On a dashboard full of slotted screws in a 1952 Buick, that was the difference between a clean job and a customer complaint. Young guys bought one at a time, a quarter a week to the dealer, building the set over a year. When Phillips heads and impact drivers took over, the old flat blade sets got tossed in coffee cans and forgotten. Now collectors hunt those amber handles at swap meets, and a clean set brings more than most people's entire toolbox. The apprentice who could not afford them in 1955 still cannot afford them today. Number 14, the S6 speeder handle. Before air ratchets, before cordless anything, speed in an American shop came from a bent steel crank called the speeder. It looked like a car starter handle with a socket drive on the end, and in the hands of a flat rate mechanic, it was pure money. You broke the bolt loose with a breaker bar, then spun it out with the speeder faster than any ratchet could click. Valve covers, oil pans, bell housings, transmission bolts. A good man with a speeder could pull a Ford flathead pan in the time it took the guy at the next bay to find his ratchet. Snap-on's version was forged, polished, and perfectly balanced, with that mirror chrome that wiped clean with one rag pass. It cost around $8 in the early 50s, roughly 4 times what the bargain brands charged, and the difference was in the spin. Cheap speeders wobbled and galled. The Snap-on turned like it was running on bearings. Flat rate pay meant you got paid by the job, not the hour, so every minute saved was a raise you gave yourself. Old-timers swore the speeder paid for itself in 2 weeks, but 2 weeks of groceries was exactly what it cost, and plenty of young mechanics never made the leap. When air tools flooded shops in the 70s, the speeder vanished from the trucks almost overnight. Guys who spent years wanting one watched it become obsolete before they ever owned it. There is a lesson in that, and every mechanic over 70 knows it by heart. Number 13, the flex head ratchet. Every mechanic in America has been there. The bolt you can see but cannot reach, buried behind an exhaust manifold at an angle God never intended. The flex head ratchet was Snap-on's answer. A fine-tooth ratchet with a hinged head that swiveled to whatever angle the job demanded, then held there with just enough tension to work upside down. The cheap knockoffs flopped like a broken wrist. The Snap-on held its angle like it had made up its mind. In 1962, the long-handle flex head ran about $15, when the whole Craftsman ratchet and socket set at Sears cost less than that. $15 was a car payment. It was 2 weeks of school lunches for 3 kids. So most guys watched the shop foreman use his and dreamed. And here's the part nobody talks about. The fine-tooth mechanism inside was the real prize. More teeth meant a shorter swing arc, and in the crowded engine bays of the muscle car era, a 5-degree swing instead of 20 was the difference between doing the job and pulling the whole manifold. Dealers would let you hold it, feel that buttery click, then quietly mention the payment book. $1 a week. Guys signed. Guys always signed. The flex head never truly disappeared, but the long-handle, fine-tooth originals from the 60s are the ones collectors chase now, because the guys who finally paid them off never let them go. Check the estate sales. They are still in the top drawer, right where he left them. Number 12, the 7-piece pliers roll. Pliers do not sound glamorous until you have twisted safety wire with a pair that will not line up, or tried to pull a cotter pin with dime store needle noses that spread apart like a wishbone. The snap-on pliers roll was 7 pairs in a canvas wrap. Needle nose, diagonal cutters, slip joints, linemans, duck bills, snap ring, and the adjustable joints that never loosened up. Around $20 for the roll in the late 50s, which was serious money when the parts store sold pliers for 60 cents a pair. The difference showed up in the jaws. Snap-on machined the teeth so they met perfectly all the way to the tip, which meant needle noses could grab a single strand of wire at the very point deep inside a harness without slipping. The cutters sheared piano wire clean and kept their edge for years. Aircraft mechanics coming home from the war knew exactly what that precision was worth because they had used government-issued snap-on during the war years and then had to hand it back. Imagine that. Uncle Sam let you use the best tools in the world for free, then sent you home to a shop where you could not afford them. Thousands of veterans spent the 50s buying back 1 pair a month, the tools they had already worked with. The canvas rolls wore out, the pliers did not. Somewhere in your grandfather's garage, there is probably 1 pair left from a roll he never finished buying, and it still cuts cleaner than anything at the big box store. Number 11, swivel impact sockets. The universal joint socket, the wobbler, the knuckle. Whatever your shop called it, snap-on swivel sockets were the ones that did not explode. That mattered because by the 60s, air impact wrenches were hammering sockets with forces hand tools never dreamed of, and cheap chrome sockets turned into shrapnel. Snap-on forged their impact swivels from black industrial finish alloy with a joint that flexed a full angle in any direction while transmitting hammer blows without shattering. A set of half-inch drive swivels ran close to $30 in 1968. The guys doing exhaust work and motor mounts, the guys lying under trucks all day reaching bolts at impossible angles, wanted them more than anything on the truck. Most made do with a separate universal joint and a standard socket, a floppy 2-piece arrangement that dropped into the frame rail at least once a day. You knew the sound, the clank, the bounce, the silence, and then the language. The 1-piece snap-on swivel could not come apart, could not drop its socket, and pivoted smoothly under full power. Fleet mechanics working on Max and Peterbilts considered them the single best investment on the truck, but at $3 a socket when a hamburger cost a quarter, the set stayed a dream for most. Dealers reported guys buying just the 2 sizes they used most, 9/16 and 5/8, and running those 2 sockets for 20 years. Complete original sets in the black finish are genuinely hard to find now because nobody could afford to buy them all at once. Number 10, here is where things get interesting. Ratcheting box wrenches. Snap-on did not invent the ratcheting box end, but they perfected it at a moment when American mechanics needed it most. Picture a 1971 engine bay. Emissions equipment everywhere, hoses and brackets stacked 3 deep, and bolts you could touch with 2 fingers, but never swing a ratchet on. The ratcheting box wrench slipped in flat, gripped the hex, and clicked the bolt out in a space too tight for anything else. The mechanism was the miracle. Dozens of tiny teeth inside a box end barely thicker than a standard wrench. The imports that copied it used pot metal internals that stripped the first time you leaned on them. Snap-ons held. A full set ran around $40 in the early 70s, when minimum wage was $1.60. That is a full week of gross pay for a kid pumping gas and turning wrenches on the side, for a set of wrenches his boss's boss owned. Here is the twist. The tool everyone said was too expensive became the design every brand on earth eventually copied. Walk into any parts store today and the ratcheting wrench is the default. The mechanics who could not afford them in 1972 were not wrong to want them. They were early. They saw the future hanging on the pegboard of the Snap-on truck, priced just out of reach, and they were right about every bit of it. Number 9, the Torquometer. In the 1930s, Snap-on put a name on something most mechanics did by feel, and the name stuck for 50 years. The Torquometer was a torque indicating wrench with a needle and a dial, and it turned tightening a bolt from guesswork into measurement. Before it, head bolts were torqued by experience. Tight, then a grunt more. Aircraft engines, then automobile engines with aluminum heads made that guesswork expensive. Strip a thread in a cast iron block and you had a bad day. Strip one in an aluminum head and you bought the customer a new head. The Torquometer read the actual twist in foot-pounds as you pulled, needle sweeping the dial, and the mechanic who owned one suddenly did work the others could not. At around $25 in the late 40s, it cost more than a week's rent in most factory towns. Shops usually bought one for the whole crew, kept it in the foreman's office, and you signed it out like a library book. Owning your own said something. It said you did head gaskets, rod bearings, the precision work, the good tickets. Young mechanics stared at it through the truck window the way other men stared at Cadillacs. When click-type torque wrenches took over in the 60s and 70s, the dial torquometers drifted into bottom drawers. But machinists and old-school engine builders never gave them up, because a dial shows you everything a click hides. The bolt that torques smooth, the thread that fights, the dial tells the truth all the way up. Number 8, the dial-back timing light. By the mid-70s, tuning an American V8 was getting complicated, and the Snap-on MT series dial-back timing light was the tool that separated tune-up men from parts changers. A regular timing light froze the timing marks with a flash. The dial-back let you turn a knob, shift the flash electronically, and read total advance at any RPM without squinting at grease-covered marks 2 inches down the timing cover. On a big block with the vacuum advance connected, that was the difference between guessing and knowing. It ran around $90 in 1975, close to a full week's take-home for a line mechanic at a small-town dealership. $90 when a basic timing light from the parts store cost $12. But the $12 light could not tell you the mechanical advance was sticking at 2,500 RPM, and the Snap-on could in about 40 seconds. The tune-up guys who owned one built reputations on it. Customers asked for them by name. That was the quiet secret of the expensive Snap-on diagnostic gear. It did not just fix cars, it built the mechanic's name, and the name brought the work, and the work paid for the tool. The guys who could not scrape together the $90 stayed parts changers, watching the tune-up man cherry-pick the gravy tickets. Then electronic ignition and computer controls arrived. Timing became a software number, and the beautiful dial-back lights went silent in their cases. They still worked perfectly. The cars left, the tool never quit. Number 7. Now here's where the money got serious. The IM6100 air impact wrench. If you worked in an American shop in the late 70s or 80s, you heard it before you saw it. That deep, hard hammer, different from the buzzy imports, rattling lug nuts loose like they were finger tight. Snap-on's half-inch impact was the gun every tire man and line mechanic measured himself against. Around $200 at a time when a lot of mechanics were flat rating for $6 or $7 an hour, and the parts store gun cost $40. Here is what the $40 gun could not do. rusted suspension bolts on a Michigan winter car, ball joint nuts, crank pulley bolts. The cheap gun hammered and screamed and quit, and you went for the 4-foot pipe. The snap-on broke it and moved on. Flat rate math made the case brutally simple. If the good gun saved you 30 minutes a day, it earned $3 a day, $15 a week, and paid for itself in 3 months. Every mechanic knew the math. Knowing the math and having $200 were different problems. So the dealer did what Snap-on dealers had done since the Depression. $10 a week, sign here, and the gun goes home with you today. Some guys carried that payment book for a year. And here's the part they will all tell you. Nobody ever regretted it. Ask any retired mechanic about his first Snap-on impact and watch his face change. It was not a purchase. It was a promotion he gave himself. Number 6, the flank drive socket set. In 1965, Snap-on patented something invisible and changed hand tools forever. Flank drive moved the contact point inside the socket away from the corners of the bolt and onto the flats. That sounds like nothing. It was everything. Corners are the weakest part of a hex, and every rounded off bolt in history got that way from a wrench pushing on its corners. Flank drive gripped the flats so the socket could pull harder on a rusted fastener and could still turn a bolt. Other tools had already rounded into a circle of shame. Mechanics did not understand the geometry, but they saw the results at the next bay. The guy with the new Snap-on set backing out the seized manifold bolt everyone else had given up on. A full 1/4 inch, 3/8 inch, and 1/2 inch drive set ran well over $100 in the late 60s, when the Craftsman equivalent was under $30 and came with a lifetime warranty too. $100+ was a mortgage payment in most of America. So the set became the goal, the thing you built toward. Dealers sold it socket by socket to the young guys, and there was a saying in the shops. You could tell how long a man had been wrenching by how far his flank drive set had grown across the drawer. When the patent eventually opened up, everyone copied the geometry, which tells you everything. The set nobody could afford became the shape of every socket made since. Number 5, the long combination wrench master set. Open any veteran mechanic's second drawer and you will find his soul laid out in polished chrome from 1/4 inch to 1.25 inches. The Snap-on long combination wrenches were the aristocrats of the drawer. Longer than standard, thinner in the beam, polished to a mirror, with an open end on one side and a flank drive box on the other. The extra length was leverage you could feel, and the thin profile slid into places that stubby hardware store wrenches never reached. A complete master set approached $150 in the early 70s. To put that in perspective, that was 2 months of groceries for a family of 4. Nobody bought the set. You bought the sizes that fed you. 1/2 inch, 9/16, 5/8 first, because Detroit built everything with those 3. Then 11/16, 3/4. The oddballs came last, sometimes years last, and a man could tell you the story behind every wrench in the drawer. The 7/16 he bought the week his son was born. The 1 inch from the Christmas bonus of 1974. This is what people miss about Snap-on and money. The tools were not just expensive, they were biographical. The drawer filled up at the speed of a working life. And the mirror chrome was not vanity. Polished wrenches wiped clean instantly showed cracks before they failed and slid out of a pocket without tearing it. Every scratch on them was earned, and the men who owned full sets earned every wrench. Number 4, here comes the controversy, the 9-drawer top chest. Because here is what nobody says out loud about tool trucks. The box was the biggest status symbol in the American shop, bigger than your car, and Snap-on knew it. Their classic top chest of the late 70s, 9 drawers on smooth slides, deep till under the lid, finished in that gleaming candy red, cost around $400. $400 for an empty steel box, when Sears sold a perfectly functional chest for $80. The dealers had an answer for that, and it was not wrong. The snap-on slides carried 100 pounds of sockets without sagging for 30 years. The drawers locked. The paint outlived the building. But let's be honest about what was really being sold, because Snap-on's own marketing people understood it perfectly. In a shop, your box stood in public view 8 hours a day. It told every customer, every foreman, and every new hire exactly where you ranked. A man with a battered flea market box got the oil changes. The man with the red Snap-on stack got the engine work, whether or not he was actually better. That is uncomfortable, and it was also true. And mechanics went into serious debt over it. Dealers financed boxes over years, and shops had a grim joke that some guys were working to pay for the box they kept their tools in to do the work to pay for the box. The chest itself was magnificent. What it cost some families was more than $400. Number 3, the 3/4 drive heavy set. Most mechanics never even opened this drawer on the truck. The 3/4 inch drive socket set was truck and heavy equipment territory. Sockets the size of coffee cups, a ratchet as long as your forearm, a breaker bar that meant business, all forged to survive torque numbers that would snap half-inch tools like pretzels. The full set ran around $250 in the mid-70s, and it was the price of admission to the best-paying wrench work in America. Diesel shops, road construction fleets, mining equipment, farm dealerships, head bolts on a Cummins, wheel studs on a loader, track hardware on a dozer. The work paid 1/3 more than car work, but you could not touch it without the heavy tools, and you could not afford the heavy tools on car work pay. That was the trap, and every ambitious young mechanic in a farm town felt it. Plenty of men tell the same story from those years. They borrowed the money from the bank, from a father-in-law, from the Snap-on dealer's payment book, bought the 3/4 set, and walked into the diesel shop able to say yes to any job on the floor. The set was the career move. Others made do with adapters and pipe extensions on half-inch tools, and the shattered ratchets and stitched foreheads of that era are their own testimony. The big sets rarely come up for sale, even now. Tools that took that much to get are the last things a man lets go. Number 2, the KR1000. In the mid-80s, Snap-on rolled out a roll cab so big the shops nicknamed it after military hardware. Nearly 5 feet of drawers, a slab of steel you could lean a transmission against, ball-bearing slides that glided out full of iron with one finger. Loaded options pushed it past $3,000. $3,000. In 1986, that was a decent used pickup. It was a semester of college. It was, for a lot of line mechanics, close to 2 months of gross pay for furniture. And it became the most wanted object in the American shop anyway. The logic of the giant box was real. By the 80s, a working master tech owned thousands of pieces, specialty pullers, metric everything, diagnostic gear, air tools. The little boxes of the 50s physically could not hold a modern mechanic's inventory, and time spent hunting tools was flat-rate money burning. The KR1000 put every tool one drawer away and organized a 20-year accumulation into something that looked like a career. Dealers financed them for years, and the weekly truck visit became a ritual around them. Coffee, payment, and 5 minutes standing in front of the big red box, opening drawers you did not need to open. Guys who owned them left them to their sons by name it in their wills. That is not an exaggeration. Estate lawyers in the Midwest have processed the KR1000 as a named asset. No other tool company ever made a steel box mean that much. And finally, number 1, the complete master set. Somewhere in the back of every Snap-on catalog was a page most mechanics never let themselves read twice. The full professional master set. Every socket and every drive, every wrench in every size, the ratchets, the extensions, the pliers, the screwdrivers, the torque wrenches, the pullers, the taps, and the dies. The whole system delivered at once, the entire truck in your box. By the early 80s, the number crossed $10,000, more than a brand new Chevette, more than some houses in some counties. And dealerships and race teams were essentially the only buyers. For the individual mechanic, the master set was not a purchase. It was the horizon. It was the complete answer to the question every working man asked himself at the truck window each week. What would it feel like to never be missing the tool? Every dollar a week screwdriver, every financed impact gun, every wrench bought one size at a time was a payment toward a version of that page, assembled over 30 years instead of 30 seconds. And that is the real story of every tool on this list. Snap-on built the best, priced it like they knew it, and American mechanics paid for it the only way they could. Slowly, stubbornly, one payday at a time. The set nobody could afford got bought anyway. It just took a working lifetime to do it. So here is my challenge. Go open that drawer, your father's, your grandfather's, your own. Find the snap-on piece that took the longest to pay off and tell me the story in the comments. Was it the impact gun, the box, the wrench bought the week you got hired? Because these were never just tools. They were proof. Bought $1 a week that a working man bet on himself and won. Your grandfather knew it every time the truck horn sounded. Now you know it too.